Hey, how's it going? I'm Nick, and I'm your host on the Echo Academy podcast, a podcast dedicated to uncovering helpful tools and strategies to help elevate your career. On today's episode, we talk about the pros and cons of pursuing two passions. My guest today is Kai Tan. Kai is an actor and fitness martial arts coach. You might have seen him in TV shows such as The Last Madame, The Good Fight, and Paddles Up. And you'll most likely find him over at Field Assembly coaching and working out. If you'd like to find out more about Kai, his work, and this episode, check out echo.academy/Kai. That's ekho.academy/KY. So, without further ado, here's my interview with Kai Tan. Kai, welcome to
Hello.
the podcast.
Hi, Nick. Thanks for having me, man.
It's been, for those who, I guess most people probably won't know, like, I've known you since we were in secondary school.
Yeah, probably Sec 1. Yeah.
But I haven't seen you since, when did you leave for New Zealand?
16, 17 years old. So it's been 16, 17 years since we've met.
My gosh. Way to make us feel old, Kai. Damn. but I'm really curious because you spent, and we were talking about this a little before the podcast, you spent half your time in New Zealand and half your time in Singapore.
Yep, about that.
What are some of the differences and similarities you might have noticed between the two countries?
Okay, so I think one of the major things is the cost of living. I think that's very apparent to me, at least. I mean, maybe because my parents are both accountants, so maybe that's the first thing that I think about. In New Zealand, right, you can work most jobs and you can have a comfortable life. You know, like
Wow.
I used to be a security officer while I was working in New Zealand while I was studying at the same time.
Right.
And I made a decent wage, man. And I can buy a car, I could rent a house, I could do all sorts of things as a so-called uneducated person.
Yeah.
So I think that's a great thing because, it's not everyone wants to study. Some people
Yes.
want to do other things. Some people prioritize other things in life. Like they want to enjoy life. They want to spend more family time. They like to do things that they want to do. But unfortunately, this kind of thing is a lot less readily available, so to speak, in Singapore, where
Right.
you really need like some kind of qualification to even have a chance at enjoying life.
Yeah.
So I think that's the biggest thing.
Yeah, I think I that's something that I noticed as well because in Singapore in particular, it's almost a slap in the face if you academically are not really you're not really interested in
Yep.
pursuing studies. Like
Mm.
all these alternative paths don't provide you a decent enough living.
Yep.
Unless you're an entrepreneur or one of those successful dropouts who became those multimillionaires. But
Exactly.
even so, that is what 0.001% of the
It's very
population.
rare.
So to cite those as examples, it's not even realistic. So
Mm.
I think that's one thing I noticed as well because my sister actually lives in Melbourne now.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so I start to notice the differences a little bit more now.
Yep.
So I think I can relate.
How long has she been living there?
She's been living there. Must be at least 6-7 years now.
Wow, okay, that's
Yeah.
that's a long time. Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
sure she loves it there.
Yeah, she does. I mean, she does, but at the same time, the cons of or the bad. I shouldn't even say it's a bad side. It's just a different side of that argument. Is that because both her and her husband, my brother-in-law, works, they need a childcare or a babysitter or something like that for their two kids, right? And childcare becomes much more expensive because of the high wage that
Yep.
you pay.
Yep.
And then when you work it out, it almost makes more sense for one of the two, whether it's my sister or her husband, to stay at home
Yep.
to look after them because it doesn't make financial sense to pay for
Yep.
that.
Yep.
So it's pros and cons, I guess. But I don't know. I don't know whether that's better or worse. It's just different.
I think at the end of the day, the cost of living though, even though childcare is super expensive there, just because labor is so expensive, I think at the end of the day, Singapore is a lot more expensive just simply because of how much a car costs, like how much a house costs. Man, my parents bought a house in New Zealand and it is 3,000 meter square in land size. And that's how big it is. And it is not even an expensive HDB. You know what? Okay, no, wait. Okay, no, that's an overstatement. It is a average cost HDB. That's how much it costs.
Yeah.
3,000 meters square.
Well, I suppose that's the difference when you have land, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
so
Which
you
New Zealand has so much of and
Yeah.
so few people. You know?
Exactly. But all that aside, I really wanted to, I've been admiring your work from afar.
Thank you so much.
I think what's really interesting about your work, for example, is that you're one of the few people that I've known for a long time who somehow managed to find your passion. I don't know whether it's by accident. I guess we'll find out shortly. But you managed to pursue your passion, but more than one, I would say.
Yes.
So, in order for our listeners to really understand that, you do. I want to get this right. Is this Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, so you're a coach or a trainer for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Correct.
And you're also an actor and a model.
Yes, correct.
So my question is, how did you get into BJJ?
Okay.
And after that, let us know a little bit about the acting and modeling as well.
Sure. Okay, so Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, right? Quite a long story. So my dad is actually, on top of being a chartered accountant, he's actually also a Muay Thai coach.
Wow, is he really?
Yeah, correct.
Wow.
So that's one of the relatively amazing things about him. So he competed and trained at a very young age, and he decided to stop at the age of 18 because he felt like it wouldn't pay the bills. So he had this skill set with him for the rest of his life, and he studied and became a chartered accountant. But after he retired, he started another gym to do as a hobby, I guess, because when you're retired, you really have nothing to do and it's really boring.
And this was in New Zealand?
Yes. Sorry. And one of the things that impacted me quite a lot when I was a kid was when I asked him this question, that, so if I could only just learn one martial art in the world, what would it be? And he told me Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So as someone who loves Muay Thai so much, right, and who has spent a significant amount of time being involved in Muay Thai, to say something like that was very impactful on me. So I just remember this statement, and about maybe 6 to 10 years later, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu actually started becoming very popular overseas, more so than in Singapore. And my sister had a boyfriend who just happened to train in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu when I was at the age of 18.
Yeah.
And then he was like, hey, you want to come for a class? I was like, oh, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Okay, I remember my dad talking about this. Yeah, why not? Give it a try. And then from there, I was just hooked after my first class. And it has changed my life in many ways. It has taught me a lot about not just discipline, but about persevering through hard times.
Right.
Because regardless of how good you are, you're always going to have an on day and off day. And the thing about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is when you do sparring, you can go at 100% rate. So there's no nothing is left to being subjective. You're either good or you're bad.
Right.
And everyone faces a bad day still, even if you're good.
It's very clear that distinction between your...
how good you are. Yeah, correct. Okay. So, sorry, I'm going off a bit on a tangent.
That's okay.
So it taught me a lot about perseverance, just because I may be good, but I can still get beaten up, especially by people that are generally better than me. And I can live in a world where I'm very good. Like if I only train in Singapore, my head can get very inflated. But because I've trained overseas a lot and I get my ass kicked so much, I'm very realistic with how good I am.
Right.
Yeah, but even then I can get beaten by people that are not as good as me. So it's a very good sport in a sense that it keeps you very grounded.
Right.
Yeah. And that's how I started Jiu-Jitsu, man.
It's quite interesting because I think a lot of these, how you started out in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, felt almost accidental, right? Because in passing, you asked your dad, and your dad casually mentioned Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, And then of all places, your sister's boyfriend
Exactly.
does Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Exactly. All right, now ex-boyfriend.
Oh, okay, yeah,
But
yeah.
now he's my best friend. So
Okay. Sorry, Kai's sister, for bringing that memory up.
It's okay.
But it's funny how like those like accidental moments, whether it was meant to be or not, kind of hits a nerve within you, and you kind of just feel strongly about pursuing that, or even at least trying where that goes.
Yep.
Is that also how you went into acting and modeling as well?
So
And sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you. Since this is a podcast, nobody will be able to see how good looking and muscular you are. So I just feel like I need to bring that up before we talk about acting and
model. Acting and modeling, right? It started back in 2000. Okay, maybe I'll give you a timeline. The idea of it started in 2005. Okay, not so much the idea of acting and modeling, but that's where the seed was planted. So in 2004, when we were Sec 4, right? After that, I left Singapore and went back to New Zealand to study.
Right, yeah.
Just because, I wasn't doing very well, and my parents thought it would be a better idea for me to go back to a place where it's more relaxed and easier environment to study. And interestingly, their English classes, right? They were done where we watch a movie and we study the movie, and we talk about the movie and write essays on the movie. So the movie that I watched was called Shawshank Redemption.
Gotcha.
And it's an amazing film. And it's actually voted as one of the best movies ever made. If you haven't catch it, you should watch it. Nice. It's a great movie. Morgan Freeman, Frank Darabont, yeah. And from that study during English class, right, of film, I was like, man, this is interesting. Like how you can do so much and talk about so many different themes via a film. And that kind of like got me very interested in the art of filmmaking, not so much acting yet. And then in 2007, the later part of 2007, when I returned to Singapore, I watched this movie called The Prestige by Christopher Nolan.
I don't think I've watched that, actually.
It's great, man. You should watch it.
Okay.
It's mind-blowing. By Christopher Nolan, starring Hugh Jackman and Christian Bale.
Got it.
So it's a great movie. And
is this the one about the magician?
Yes, that's the one. That's the one. Yeah. You watched it?
I have not. But
please,
I know what it is.
Go ahead. And that film was so mind-blowing that it struck a chord with me, and I was like, wow, I really super interested in the art of filmmaking now. But because of NS, right, I had no chance to like kind of act upon this, and I then just took the chance to watch as many movies as I could, because that's kind of when streaming became very popular, with the advances in so-called technology.
Yes.
I just kept watching movie after movie after movie, and it got me really interested in art of filmmaking. So after the 2 years, I went back to New Zealand again after doing NS in 2007 to 2009. I went to university in New Zealand, and I didn't have the chance to do any acting or any modeling and all that. But when I came back to Singapore again, because I constantly came and went, I managed to come back to Singapore in 2016. And before I got a job in banking, I was like, shit, I need a way to earn money. I can't rely on my savings or rely on my parents when my savings run out. And I was like, you know what? I'm very interested in acting and filmmaking. Why not I give this a try? So I found an agent through a friend.
In Singapore?
In Singapore, yeah. And this agent sent me for some castings. So castings are basically like an interview where they give you a shot to act certain scenes out of whether it's a commercial or whether it's a TV show. And I just happened to get a really big commercial role in an advertisement for CPF.
Got it.
So that's kind of how I got started, because that small seed was planted in New Zealand by watching Shawshank Redemption, and another seed was planted when I watched The Prestige. And then I managed somehow, without any acting skills or any acting experience, to get a role in a CPF commercial, which was actually a pretty big commercial. Very fortunate for me. And from there on, I was like, I'm hooked, man. I just want to keep doing more. But I never thought about doing it for a career until I started banking. And when I did banking, right, in 2016, once again, I
This was after you graduated. What did you graduate in, by the way?
I graduated with a degree in marketing and finance.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And so naturally, obviously, I went to work in a bank, right? I wanted to I want to be like, I want to earn like 10,000 by by the first year that I'm working, a month. I didn't succeed, by the way.
Yeah.
So I enjoyed my time at the bank, but like at the same time, like my soul was relatively empty, So 2 years after that, I quit, and for about 6 to 8 months, I just did nothing with my life but go to the gym and train because I didn't know what I want to do with my life. I was kind of like, how we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
You don't really know what you want to do with your life when you're 20 plus.
Exactly.
And it just so happens that the people that I met on the CPF commercial shoot kept in contact with me throughout the process of me being in banking for 2 years. They would invite me to parties, they would invite me to hang out, and we had always had a good relationship. So when I left the bank, they're like, hey, why don't you come and give acting a proper try? And then I was like, man, like it doesn't really make financial sense, and it's very hard to succeed.
Yeah.
But fortunately, Field Assembly, who is ran by Jean, our friend,
Yes.
offered me a job as well at that point in time when I was in limbo.
Yes.
And through that, I started earning like a certain amount of income as well to help me sustain myself. I mean, I was still in a deficit.
Yeah.
Living on a deficit, obviously, because the gym doesn't pay that much for the certain amount of classes that I teach.
Got it.
But I did my numbers and I calculated, I was like, you know what? Actually, I can give acting a try for 1 year because I have X amount to last for 1 year before I go completely broke and have to ask my parents for money.
So you gave yourself a timeline.
Yes, so I gave myself a timeline.
And for listeners who don't know, Field Assembly is the gym where you're the trainer in, and what do you train?
So I coach fitness and martial arts, mainly Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So that's my main job there, a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu coach.
Okay.
And secondly, it's a Muay Thai coach and a fitness coach.
Got it.
Yeah. Sorry, where was I? Yeah. So I did the numbers and I was like, you know what? I can give this a shot. So why not? And very, very fortunately, after I made that decision, like a couple months down the road, I got a role in this show called Paddles Up, which is a dragon boating show.
Yes.
And after that, I got another role, and then I got another role, and I got another. I was like, wow, maybe I can really, really actually give this a shot.
Yeah.
And here we are. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And what does that process look like? I mean, because you made it sound really easy, like this whole acting thing,
Yeah.
but I'm pretty confident it's not at all. So,
Yeah.
like, what were some of the challenges you faced, and because you really wanted to give it a shot, but what did you have to go through to get yourself these auditions, to get yourself into these because I did watch Paddles Up, it was pretty good.
Oh, thank you.
And it was filmed in my alma mater, which was SMU as well. So,
Yeah, exactly.
but yeah, talk us through that process and the challenges and the opportunities that come from it.
Okay. So I think why not talk about the challenges first? So I think the biggest challenge was trying to make sense and justify giving it a shot in the first place, and on top of that, making financial sense as well. Once again, maybe because my parents are accountants and I studied finance, this is one of the first things that come to mind. I really had to crunch numbers and live on a very tight budget, and I still do. So the biggest challenge was probably money. Like, if I don't have money, where am I going to stay? How am I going to eat? That's the biggest thing. And I calculated that if I don't do any acting jobs at all and I live on a deficit for 1 year, I'll be broke. So I took the chance and just did that. And luckily enough, I succeeded. And the other big challenge was that I have no acting background experience other than that one CPF commercial. I have no modeling experience. I have no acting or modeling training. So I knew that because I have this lack of skill, I needed to make up for it somehow. And fortunately enough, I'm a relatively fit guy.
Yes.
So I thought like, I have fitness and I have martial arts on my side. So I need to use these two so-called skills and assets of mine to help me get into roles. And coincidentally, the first two roles that I got were because of martial arts and because of fitness, because my body looks okay, quite nice. And
understatement.
You're
My
too nice.
body
You're too
looks
nice.
okay. Yours looks like a damn Adonis.
You're too nice, Nick. You're too nice. And yeah, so those two were like gateways to help me. So I think a lesson learned, I guess, is if you lack in one area, it's not the end of the world. You can always try and weasel your way in by another way. For me, which was fitness and martial arts. Yeah, so those were the big challenges, like money and a barrier to entry. But I'm lucky enough that I worked in the bank and saved money, and I'm lucky enough that I didn't just be a bum while I left my bank. I spent my time relatively wisely by training and getting fit. Yeah.
Okay. And it's interesting because when you say like you turn those challenges into opportunities, you try to harness the assets you had in your so-called day job, which was as an instructor, to try and get you those roles. Was it something that you consciously made on your own, or was this something that maybe your agent or other people kind of seeded in you, like, hey, maybe this is what you should focus on? Yeah.
No, actually, it was just something that I thought of myself. I'm not trying to float my own boat, but I just really had a hard thing. Like, if I really want to do acting and I have no training or acting experience, how can I get into it? And then I was like, martial arts and fitness, especially just because it was already in my daily routine before I thought about giving acting a try. And it just really fell into place. And I'm just very fortunate. Yeah.
Got it. And something that I'm personally interested in is when you have an agent.
Yep.
I'm sure they've got many people under their belt.
Yes.
Right. Is there a lot of competition within the same agency as well? And if so, how do you try to get the roles that you want?
Yep. So I think there is a lot of competition, but fortunately, I come from a relatively new agency. It's about 3 years old, and the amount of people that really want to do like proper acting, like TV shows and stuff, there are fewer as compared to modeling and like doing just TV commercials, which take a lot less time. So I had that going for me. So I had less competition. B, to get an edge over the others, I guess, is just really, really work on my craft with the time that I had. So some of the people that are also giving acting out a try, right, they actually have full-time jobs. So they have a lot less resource in the form of time. But I had so much time just because I only taught at the gym like 3 days a week. So I made sure that I studied my scripts inside and out, and I sought as much help from my agent as I could. So I really got to give my agency Faces a shout out for giving me the time of their day, the time in their day, because they could have spent it with other people, or they could have spent it doing the actual work, because that's not their job,
Right.
to train me. Yeah. So I'm very fortunate. Yeah.
That's great, man. Good to hear. And you brought up a brilliant point that segues into like the meat of the discussion I wanted to have with you today, and that's pursuing multiple passions at one time. And you brought up the fact that some of your colleagues in that agency, they have full-time jobs, right? And modeling or acting is their part-time pursuit. Now, just by the fact that they have a full-time job, they're eliminated from certain opportunities that are presented to you compared to them, right?
Yes.
Does having more than, and this is also for you having your other job, which is as a gym instructor, does having another job actually hinder you from pursuing one passion, or does it actually enable you to pursue it?
I would say if you had a full-time job that has little to no relation to the acting industry, then for sure it's a big hindrance. So let's say if I'm in IT, how much can I'm speaking from a person who has no IT experience at all. How much can an IT job help me in terms of acting? I think it's little to none. So that is a big hindrance. But for me, I'm fortunate enough that being fit and having a martial arts skills definitely helps with acting, just because you look good and you have a special skill set to add value to yourself and perform. Because there's always some kind of like martial arts stuff that's going on TV shows,
True.
which is great for me. So in my case, it helps me a lot. But the bad thing for me about having so-called two part-time jobs or two full-time jobs, depending on how you look at it, is that the scheduling can be very hard. And it can be very taxing on me as a coach and as an actor. So there are times where during a 48-hour period, right, I will be working and up and about for 40 hours or
Really?
more. Yeah. So like I'll give you the craziest 48 hours I've had. I woke up at 5:30 in the morning. I taught class at 7 in the morning until 8:30 in the morning. I went to train and do my run errands between 9 to 11. And then I ate lunch. And then at 12 o'clock, I taught more classes. At 12 to 1:30, I taught classes. And between 2 to 5, I trained some more and ate dinner already. And then I taught classes at 6 all the way to 9. At 9, I took a cab home. I took a cab to acting work. And then I acted all the way from 10 a.m. all the way to 10 p.m. 10 p.m. all the way to 5 a.m. At 5 a.m., I took a cab home. I took a cab to the gym. And then I did my whole gym routine again. I worked out, I taught classes and all that. And by the end of the day, I was only home at about 11 p.m. on the second day. Yeah, so like that's an example of just like a nuts day. And like, it's not that I had to teach the classes. I could have easily given the classes away. But once again, back to the financial situation thing is, as much as I can, I want to teach my classes so that I can build up a reserve to put in my bank account on a rainy day where I don't have any acting jobs. Because if I don't do any acting jobs, I'm living in a deficit. Yeah. So I felt like I needed to push myself to do this also. Yeah.
Right. And also that you also had to train because you had to maintain the
Exactly.
physique and stuff for your roles as well, right? So and I wanted to bring that up because maybe people might have thought like, hey, you could have just as easily not trained.
Yep.
But that's critical to your craft.
Exactly.
In acting and in training people.
It is.
I mean, talk about the discipline that has to come in doing, both at the same time. Because, being a gym trainer is almost like a means to an end financially to help supplement your acting. Did you always have that discipline, and how did you try to strengthen your self discipline?
Okay, I didn't always have that discipline. I think when we were secondary school, especially, I wasn't a naughty kid, but I never studied. I had no discipline when it came to studying. I think that's quite well known among teachers. Like you see me sleeping in class all the time and stuff.
Yeah.
But when I started in NS, right, I think that was a very, like we were talking about earlier before the podcast, how NS changed my life. And I think one of the things that I got from NS was discipline. And while I was in NS, I started doing jiu-jitsu, which gave me even more discipline and taught me perseverance. So it's something that I learned along the way. And I felt like I never really understood and got a good grasp of what discipline was until maybe 2018, which is when I left my banking job. Because then I wasn't training for any competitions and I had nothing better to do in my life, but I still went to the gym and trained.
Yeah.
So I think that was the beginning of me understanding discipline, just going through the motions of doing what I needed to do, even though I had no purpose in it. But yeah. But now I think instead of discipline, right, it has become an obsession almost.
Right.
Like it's not that I need to do it just because of work. I'm disciplined to do it. It's like if I don't do it, I feel like OCD almost. It's like, oh, the door is like dirty.
Yeah.
I don't want to touch the door, kind of thing. Yeah. So now it's more of an obsession than discipline. Sorry, I'm not sure if I'm being very clear.
No, it's true because and I always. It's funny you brought up the point of obsession because I think that's really what it takes to reach a certain level that no other people,
100%,
no other person can attain, right?
100%.
And you think of those star athletes, like at some point, through their development, probably when they were younger, like any one of us would be like, I bet if I try hard enough, I can take him.
Yeah.
Always. But then, there's almost like this like click in them, right? Where just it appears overnight, but definitely not. Where they just become so excellent at their craft that nobody can even touch them. And I think a lot of it just becomes obsession, right?
Yes.
And Cristiano Ronaldo comes to mind when I think of that because I don't know how familiar you are with football or soccer.
Relatively, not amazingly, not as much as you obviously, but okay, a decent amount.
Do you know Lionel Messi
yes.
and Cristiano Ronaldo? Yeah, so the way I see it is Cristiano Ronaldo. I mean, Lionel Messi has, like, I would say, God-given talent almost. Whether you believe it or not. So like he has this natural flair for football, and that's why he's the world's greatest, right? But someone like Cristiano Ronaldo, even when he was like younger, no one ever saw him as someone who could match up to someone like Messi. But it was his obsession to just be the best. You know, the way he trained, the way he conducted himself, the way he always set his goals extremely high, that allow him to compete on a level that he shouldn't have been on, and to stay there and even surpass Lionel Messi in sometimes. So I feel like obsession really plays a part. Whether it's healthy or not, I don't know. Maybe you can tell us.
It is healthy as long as it does not do you bodily harm. That's what I would say. Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. It's almost like, method acting. Like it's healthy as long as it does not do you bodily harm. I think. Yeah.
Got it.
And to be an asshole, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Which is hard once you're obsessed, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So obsession is a real thing, man. I can, as someone who has in between graduating from university and coming back to Singapore to work, right? I actually trained jiu-jitsu full-time at one of the best gyms in the world in America. And I had a chance to get insight as to what the mindset of a full-time athlete is like, and be surrounded by multiple full-time athletes, some of which are world champions at what they do, which is jiu-jitsu, of course. And there are a lot of highs and lows, man. And there are days where you just get beaten up. But that relates to back what we were talking about earlier. It teaches you perseverance. You get beaten up. You get you're just in such a bad mental state when you're tired and you're getting beaten up. But the obsession just it really pulls you through, because you really just want to be the best at what you're doing. It's kind of like what you're saying with Cristiano Ronaldo. Yes. And the obsession just really comes through because you still just force yourself to wake up at 6 a.m., go and train, and get beaten up more after a day of being beaten up yesterday, So like obsession really helps. But as long as it doesn't do you bodily harm, it's okay. Yeah.
Got it. So you had the opportunity to train with professional athletes, full-time athletes.
Yep.
Can you give us an insight on what their day looks like?
Okay. I will not just give you an insight as to what their day looks like, but I'll give you an insight as to how they live.
Yes, please.
So my friends in America, okay, I can call them friends now, I guess, who are also my coaches back in America, they take a big risk with their life in jumping into doing jiu-jitsu full-time. Firstly, because jiu-jitsu is not a very high-paying sport, because it is relatively new and because of the way organizations are set up, right. Unlike basketball. Some are married with a wife and kid, but they have to share a room with other people. So can you imagine having a wife and kid sharing not just an apartment, but sharing a room? So let's say we're living in this room now, my wife and kid. Oh, sorry. Yeah. We're sharing a room. Yeah. So my wife and kid are in this on this side, and we have one bed here, and I have another roommate sleeping here, and I have another roommate sleeping on the floor.
Wow.
So it's just like mind blowing how much of a leap of faith they are taking. Not just them, but also props to their spouses, man. To be willing to follow their husband's dreams or wife's dreams, and take this leap of faith with them. So that's how they live.
And can I interrupt you there?
Sure.
Did they ever tell you how their spouse felt about it, and what were the challenges that came with that?
Yep. I never went into that. I didn't really want to intrude, but that's also something that's very interesting that I would also like to know. Like what's on their minds. But from what I saw from the outside, at least, the spouses were very happy. Like they're happy to see their partner doing what they love and doing their best to succeed at what they want to be good at and make a living out of it. Yeah. And they're very supportive. Like it's mind blowing how supportive they are. Because having grown up in Singapore as well, I think it'd be very rare for I'm not trying to offend people who live in Singapore, but it's something that I think a lot of parents and a lot of women or men would not agree to. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not sure about geographically, like whether spouses would in different countries would feel a certain way. But what I notice is that spouses always give their loved ones a chance when they actually see them put in the work.
Yes.
You know, like if you're just a bum, be like, yeah, I want to be an actor. You know, like they'll be like, yeah, but what are you doing?
Exactly.
Yeah, then it becomes there's a lot of friction.
Yep.
But when you see someone like relentlessly trying, and you know, it's hard not to even give them a chance.
Yep.
So I guess maybe that plays into the human emotion part of it.
Yep.
You know, you
Yep.
love someone enough to try to at least give them a chance to succeed.
Yep. Exactly. Which is very, very admirable. Even if you like, to be honest, like even if I saw someone trying, like let's say if I had to invest in someone, I see you trying, but there's 1,000 of other people that are also trying. So why should I, like, you know, in a sense of not getting married to you but investing in you? Why should I invest in you instead of the other person?
That's
so it's
true.
a big leap of faith, man.
It
So really
is,
props
it
to
is.
them. Yeah.
Yeah, much respect. You know, I'm not sure I could do it, but
Yeah, exactly. I'm not sure I could do it too, man. Like, you know.
But yeah, you were telling us about the day in the life of
Yeah.
a professional
So
athlete.
a day in the life as a professional athlete is it's very grueling, especially more so maybe in jiu-jitsu where there's a lot less money involved. You have to coach full time and you have to train full time. So one of the coaches, his name is Danny. Is one of someone that I would say I was closer to back in the day when I was there. Is he coaches class at 6 in the morning, so it means he has to probably be up at like 5:30 or something. He has
At
to go to
least.
the gym. Yeah, exactly, right. And he'll teach a class for an hour and a half from 6 to 7:30. He rests, he has breakfast, and then he trains at 9 o'clock to 10:30, and then he does another class right away after that from 10:30 to 12. So on top of waking up at 6 a.m., he has to do 3 hours worth of training after teaching a class, you know, an hour and a half after teaching a class, which is very tiring.
Okay.
And on top of that, the classes that he has to do after that, right, are very hard competition classes. So you're really pushing your body to a very big limit, so to speak. And after 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock, when you're done with the classes, you take a break and then you have to teach more classes.
Wow.
And you have to do it even if you're tired or even if you're injured, which is a whole different topic. Just because you need to make a living out of it. Yeah. And you need to get out of that room that you're sharing with a wife and kid and two other people, you know. So it's once again, it's really so admirable to be taking such a big leap of faith. Yeah.
Yeah. And if they were to win like a championship or something, is 1 year's worth of prize money enough for them to
That's the thing,
to
man.
move out or something?
There is little to no money in jiu-jitsu, so you don't win money. So
Wow.
for Brazilian jiu-jitsu, right, the most prestigious competition, until last year, there was no prize money.
Really?
Yes,
So what were they doing it for? Just out of passion, sheer
passion and love for the art, obsession with the art, and just maybe out of office lifestyle as well. Yeah. So it's people who do Brazilian jiu-jitsu, yeah, you're just very passionate about the art. Yeah. So over at Field Assembly, we're lucky in a sense we have a very stable background because of the fitness industry that we fitness classes that we run. So then we can start dwelling into Brazilian jiu-jitsu.
That's incredible, you know, especially when you know there's like even when you win, there's no windfall that can take you out of.
Exactly.
Wow, that's a lot of admiration for that. But coming back to you personally, I mean, what's the long-term plan for you? Like how do you see yourself? I mean, because you like both, but do you like one enough to pursue one? Because I don't know, can you pursue both and reach the peak?
I think that it'll be very hard for me to reach the peak in jiu-jitsu. Firstly, because I feel like I started too late. And on top of that, I have in Singapore, unfortunately, we don't have a big enough scene, or the scene has not developed to the point where there are a lot of world-class athletes coming to Singapore to stay and train. So you don't have the resource to become that great as compared to being in Brazil or being in America. So that's one hindrance. The other hindrance is I don't think I'm that talented. I'm
Right?
talented to a certain extent, but I feel like all the top athletes in the world, they have a certain amount of talent in the first place and they train very hard. Every athlete that's at the top has trained very hard and they have a certain amount of talent. But that's just my point of view. And I don't think I have that much talent. Sorry, what were you talking about again?
Yeah, no, the main question like I really wanted to
Yeah.
boil down is do you think it's possible to pursue both things?
Okay.
Yeah.
So it is possible, but I feel like you have to be realistic with your view, with your outlook. You need to see what makes you more money to be sustainable. So if I only taught Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I would make not enough money. But if I focus on acting, I would be able to make more money for me to so-called pursue a different passion in the form of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. But it just so happens that I love acting too. So it's great for me. But I would probably ideally have to give up the fitness side of things and only teach Jiu-Jitsu so that I can put more time into acting.
Got it.
So that's the long-term goal for me, I guess. Right now I'm teaching fitness, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and I'm doing acting. But eventually I would like to only teach Jiu-Jitsu and do more acting.
Got it.
Yeah. Because Jiu-Jitsu is the bigger passion among the three passions that I have, and fitness being the least passionate thing that I'm passionate about.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing fitness is like a means to an end. Like you need fitness to pursue Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
And acting. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if you put it that way, I guess. Yeah. Correct.
Okay.
But I love fitness as well. Yeah.
I mean, I didn't mean to simplify it. But,
No. Of course,
But I think it's a pretty interesting one because I'm always of the firm belief that to be great or to be successful in something, it's hard to pursue more than one thing at a time. But I also understand like the financial aspect, right? So I suppose the question I want to ask, and this is based on your experience solely. Don't take like other people.
Okay.
What advice would you give others who are trying to make ends meet, or maybe they are financially successful, but there's a passion that they really want to pursue as well? How would you, number one, how would you advise them to start on it?
Okay.
And number two, what would you advise them to see it become a reality?
Okay, so I think for me, right, number one is always finances. Like how realistic are you, not just for your current situation, to sustain yourself, to pursue your passion. So you need to save money, but also the future outlook. Can you save enough money to have a family, to buy a house, to drive a car, to save for retirement as well? So that's number one, your finances. The second thing is, I think, set measurable goals. Like for example, this might sound stupid, but I set a goal for myself to get a certain number of gigs, acting gigs, modeling gigs, and also, this will sound even more stupid, hit a certain number of Instagram followers, for example.
Got it.
Because
where are you at now, and where do you want to be?
So last year before I started, I was at like about 1,000, but now I'm at like 4,000 plus, which is not a big number, but it is a progress that I can measure.
Yes.
I fell short of my goal, which was 5,000 plus.
Got it.
But I'm still happy with where I'm at. So now, the following year, this year, my goal is to hit 8,000. And so set measurable goals, like the number of gigs you have, how much money you earn per gig, and what else can help you with the gigs, like Instagram following. It plays a big part in the industry, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Fortunately or unfortunately, depending on how you look at it.
When as in they use that as a barometer to see if you would get a lot of views.
Exactly. So one reason why Instagram is so popular, if you would like me to talk about
please.
is so important, is because right now a lot of things are happening online. So you can watch every Channel 5, every Channel 8, pretty much anything that MediaCorp produces, you can watch it online on this website called Toggle.
Yes.
And there are certain shows that are not aired on Channel 5 or Channel 8 or any of the normal TV channels that are produced and only played online. So to save costs for marketing, or to increase the level of marketing and visibility for the shows, right, they need you to have a big Instagram following so that people will actually know about the show.
Right.
Yeah. So having a high following will give the chance a higher success, chance of success when it only goes online and there's little to no marketing done outside of that. Yeah. So even overseas, these things are actually pretty big factors as well. Because once again, like Netflix, there's so many shows on Netflix. So how will Netflix be able to advertise these shows? And that's by social media, Instagram, Facebook, whatever.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, I'm a huge fan of The Rock, like Dwayne The Rock Johnson.
Who isn't?
Yeah,
right.
I mean, exactly. Like he is like the epitome, and he has like however many million on social media.
A lot.
I mean, to be honest, I don't think he deserves some of the acting gigs he gets because I don't think he's that great an actor. But now that you mention social media, like he's just a powerhouse,
Exactly,
right? Like he's
exactly.
just everywhere in digital media.
Mm.
Like you can't not cast him if you want to make the millions
Exactly,
of dollars
exactly.
that you're trying to make. So yeah, I guess it makes total sense, you know,
Mm.
especially now in an age where content is proliferated and you can get content everywhere. The only way to stand out is to have your actors be well known, I suppose.
Exactly. And like, you know, a lot of people would go and watch a movie just because it's The Rock.
Exactly.
Who's not a fan of
Me,
The Rock?
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's like almost like people like very diehard actors, they would watch like every Leonardo DiCaprio movie, every Daniel Day-Lewis movie, every you know, Jack Nicholson, all the big names, Joe Pesci.
Yeah.
So it's they have a big following lah. So these things help out a lot. Yeah.
It does.
Especially in a digital age, right?
Yeah, it's funny because I remember like, cause I mean we'll go back to The Rock. Like I watched most, if not all, of his movies, right? Yeah. You know, and I've never come out of the movie thinking, man, that was some stellar acting. You know? But at the same time, you know, I'm like, you know, but he's just got an appeal. And
Exactly.
that appeal comes through wherever, I suppose. But moving back to the topic of setting measurable goals.
Yep.
How do you know what's a realistic goal? How do you figure that out for yourself?
To be honest, I had no idea what a realistic goal was. I just like, okay, I want to reach 5,000 followers, but by the end of 2019, I fell short, but like I'm okay with that because it was still a good amount of progress. I want to get this number of shows. I had no idea whether it was realistic or not. I just set it for myself, and very, very fortunately, I reached most of these goals. Especially, I guess the pay aspect of the show. So when I started acting, okay, not so-called really started acting, but when I left the bank, I actually acted in Our Boys to Men. And
wait, did you?
Yeah, but like I was only an extra, so it's very hard to see me.
No way.
Yeah, you can see me, but it's very hard to see me.
Oh, I did not know that.
It's Our Boys to Men 4. So the
Okay,
one that came out in 2017 or 2018.
Man, I have to rewatch that. I did not.
No,
even
bro,
know.
it's not-
You did
no
not even
time.
say. Why did you not promote this?
I don't know. I guess just because I was an extra and like I had lines, but like they ended up being cut out anyway. So
Yeah.
I'm in the background and I'm shown for like one split second, like a full on front shot. So it's not really much, but I was earning like McDonald's money kind of thing, like so to speak, like because McDonald's is quite known for paying a very low wage, right?
Okay.
I'm not trying to insult anyone, by the way.
Yeah.
So I also set myself, okay, by the end of this year, I want to get paid this much per day of acting. Because right now, for most acting gigs, you get paid by half a day or by a full day basis. Half a day is 6 hours. So if you go to 6 hours and 1 minute, they'll pay you for a full day.
Oh, nice.
Correct. Yeah. So, you know, in
Yeah.
most situations, people hope for that to happen.
Yeah.
And a full day is 12 hours.
And what about night shoots? Does that count for more?
Night shoots, for me, it doesn't count for more, but for maybe other people, maybe bigger stars like Joanne Pay, for example, I'm not sure if that helps. But if you go overtime, they'll pay you by the minute. So if you shoot for 12 hours and 13 minutes, they'll pay you for the extra 13 minutes. And I wanted to hit X amount. And very fortunately, once again, I managed to hit that amount. So it relieves the financial pressure and stress that I have. So it's like almost like one less thing on my mind that I have to worry about. So now whenever I get an acting gig, okay, I need to stress less. I need to worry less because I'm always stressing about it, even though I have a decent amount in my bank account as a reserve to
For a rainy day.
For a rainy day, exactly. I think another tip that I can give for people who are pursuing their passions, right, other than setting goals that you can measure, is that understand that there's going to be good days and there's going to be bad days. But regardless of whether it's a good day or whether it's a bad day, you must stay focused and not let your mind go astray. So, for example, if you're doing very well, don't get your head
too high in the
clouds. Exactly. Be the same person. Don't be an asshole. Be a nice person. Be a good human being. And when it's a bad day, just understand that there are bad days, and that if you have initially at the start of this process set a very realistic expectation, you will weather through unless it has come to that. For example, if I didn't get any acting jobs for 1 year, right, for my reserve, then I have to reassess my goals. Okay, that's not just a bad day, that's a bad year. So then that changes things.
Yes.
But just understand there are good and bad days, and just stay focused and stay on the same track. Yeah.
And when you personally have a bad day, how do you deal with that? What's your way of like snapping you back to reality and focusing on the goals that you need to do?
I do that by following my routine that I always do. And I also do that by understanding that I have very prudently planned this passion project, so to speak, right?
Yes.
And that a bad day or two is okay. Yeah. So I just keep that in mind. As much as it does affect me inside, like mentally, I just tell myself it is okay. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So I think that's very important because, some people get success and then they're like, ooh, look at me. And then some people go through bad days and like, oh shit, maybe I can't do this anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So does that relate to, let's say, if you don't get acting gigs that pay the amount that you want, do you just chalk it off as like, all right, I just gotta keep at it and I just keep doing it until I get where I want to be? Or how do you assess that situation?
So there are certain jobs that will pay more than others, but now I have like a certain base rate already as compared to like the Ah Boys to Men one. So my only worry now is more of not getting a gig rather than the amount that it pays. But different gigs pay, like commercials pay a lot more than acting gigs itself by per day basis.
Got it.
So for example, a commercial can pay you like 2,000 to 3,000 per day. But when you're acting, maybe you can be earning like, as low as less than $100 a day.
Got it.
Yeah, for some people. But right now, I'm fortunate enough to be in a situation where I'm happy with the amount I earn in the commercial, and I'm happy with the amount that I'm earning in a TV show.
Perfect.
But I also need to be like, okay, I want more. Now, on top of getting commercials, I also want endorsements. I also want to earn more on TV shows. So it's not that I want to, it's a form of progression that I need to set goals for myself for.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's a moving target for you.
Exactly.
I love it. I
Yeah.
love it. Well, final question, and it's not really a question like for anything, but for those who don't know you, how can they find and watch your shows and
Okay.
and yeah, how do they and also how can they find you online?
Oh, okay. So I think probably the avenue that I use the most now is probably Instagram.
Yep.
So you can find me on Kai Tan XH. So that's spelled KYTANXH on Instagram. And that's where I post me working out, my daily activities, like whether it's acting or whether it's hanging out with friends. If you're interested to watch, you can even message me on Instagram. I'll very likely reply unless it's a very dodgy DM.
Yeah, online betting.
oh no, dude! Like,
Endorsement.
what's that, man? Like, I've gotten like various pictures from various people, or like various weird messages, not like just like online betting. So
Oh,
it's-
nice.
yeah.
Show me after the
I'll
podcast.
show you. Actually, I mean, like it's a bit creepy, but it's also like entertaining in a sense. Yeah,
And it's flattering in a way, I guess.
yeah, it is
in a
quite
way,
flattering.
yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, and what TV shows are you on, and how can they find it?
Okay, so last year I was fortunate enough to do 4 TV shows, one of which is Paddles Up, which you can find on Toggle, one of which is Last Madame, which is probably the biggest show that I did last year. And
Is that the one with Joanne Pay?
yes, it was the one with Joanne Pay. And by the way, Joanne Pay is a super sweet lady, man. She's so nice. Unbelievably nice. It's also on Toggle. It's an M18 show though, for various reasons.
Okay.
There's another show that was on Channel 8 called The Good Fight.
Hmm.
But you can also now watch it on Toggle, even though it aired on Channel 8.
Got it.
And there's also another show that's coming out this year that I filmed last year called Caught Dead.
Okay.
Yeah. So all these can be found on Toggle. And I've done various advertisements, but I don't think people are very interested in
Yeah, I
advertisements.
don't know how you're gonna find that too.
Yeah.
But in terms of your the show on Channel 8, you spoke Mandarin in it?
Yes, I spoke Mandarin in it.
Damn.
I was also impressed with myself.
Wow.
But funny story is like
Such a difference from secondary school, bro.
Dude, no. My Chinese is just about as bad as that. But the thing with that, right, is when I went into the audition, so there were 2 auditions process for that. One is I had to do a fight scene or like display a martial arts skill, And the second one was the reading. So for the martial arts skill aspect, right, a big shout out to my friend Shane Majuki, who's a very seasoned actor in Singapore. He sent me this casting call of martial arts, where saying, "Where come down and do like a couple of minutes of display for martial arts." So I went and choreographed a fight with my friend Royal from Field Assembly, and through that choreographed fight, I managed to pull through to the second edition where I actually had to read stuff out. And trust me, I absolutely butchered it. I butchered, like, I forgot my lines. I was so nervous. Firstly, because it was in Chinese. Secondly, is I wasn't very experienced back then. And like the lady who was reading the lines to me, right, as my on-screen partner, she had to tell me my lines so that I could act it out. And it was so bad. When I went out, I told my agent, like, I'm not getting it, man. And like 2 days later, like, hey, you got the role. I was like, oh,
you're like, how?
Nice, thank you. I don't know how, but thank you. And I think that relates back to what we talked about earlier. Like, I just have that special skill set. I think they were so impressed with the choreographed fight and like maybe my body that they were willing to give me a chance in this. And I'm very thankful for that. Yeah.
Hey, that's a life lesson right there. You know, you don't have to have all the skills, just enough to get through the door.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Man.
That's 100% it.
Life hack.
It's absolutely life hack. But even when I got the role, right, on the first day of shoot, I literally almost puked because I was so nervous.
Really?
Yeah, because I wasn't experienced enough and just because it's in Chinese.
Yeah.
Yeah. But luckily I managed to pull through. Yeah.
Well done, man. Good for you.
Thank you. Where were we? I can't remember. Yeah.
Well, Kai, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Hey, thanks for having me, Nick. Appreciate
it. It's one of those things where it's always nice to interview people who pursue their passion, but it's even more rewarding for me to speak with friends who do that, because like for me, I feel like in Singapore we don't always get that opportunity to pursue our passions.
Yep.
So when I see my friends, my personal friends do that, I don't know, I'm filled with joy, because you guys, you know, of all the obstacles in your way, you guys were like, fuck it.
Yep.
You know, I'm going for it, and you know, and let that be a lesson to anyone listening. You know, just go for it. Set measurable goals.
Exactly.
Know that, you know, there are good days and bad days, but keep a routine.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. If you don't mind, I'm just gonna give 2 shout outs. One of which is my best friend. His name is Jonathan Lim, and his mom, dad, and brother Rex Lim, Linda Lim, and Raphael Lim. They've actually been housing me in Singapore for the last 4 years.
Wonderful.
Yeah, exactly. And like absolutely rent free. Like, so this is one big reason why I've also managed to give this a shot, because I have one less thing to worry about, which is rent. So I'm like super grateful to John and his family. And the other big shout out is to Field Assembly, which is my gym. And obviously Jean for giving me this opportunity to work at the gym, pursue my passion, and give me something that will sustain my living so that I can pursue my other passion, which is acting. Yeah, so big shout out to Field Assembly, Jean, Elias, and everyone at Field Assembly.
I love it, man. And I guess when this podcast comes out, you'll have to tag them, because I don't know half the people you mentioned.
Okay.
So,
I'll do that. I'll do that for sure.
There's so many people you thanked, and it's good that you're grateful to them, you know, because the truth is, you know, life's a journey, right? And it always helps when people help you along the way.
Exactly. Be a good human, and everyone else will be a good human to you.
That's true, man. Kai, absolute pleasure.
Pleasure was mine, man. Thank you so much.
Cheers, brother.
Thank you, dude.